final proposals for the construction of a tramway around the hill of Howth were prepared by the chief engineer of the Great Northern Railway, W.H. Mills, in December the 23rd, 1896. The Dublin and Drogheda Railway Company decided to send a branch line to serve the new harbour in Howth with the hope of gaining the lucrative traffic engendered by the mailboat. The first steam train arrived in Howth on the 30th of May 1847. Too late, however, as the packet steamers now berthed across the bay in Dunleary. There was a time when every major street in Dublin had grooved or sunken tram rails laid in granite sets or cobblestones, exactly as these narrow gauge tracks which once served Guinness's brewery and which can still be seen. Such tracks in Dublin City are now becoming increasingly rare. On the 1st of February 1872, the first Dublin horse tram ran from College Green to Garville Avenue in Rathgar, and within a short number of years had fanned out in all directions. The first electric cars were open-fronted like the horse trams. Later, the first floor was extended and the platform was enclosed with a windscreen, and these became the open-toppers. The balcony cars appeared in the early 1920s, followed by the standards, with their upper deck completely enclosed. Finally, the metal-clad luxury trams or streamliners appeared in the early 30s. The hill trams were open-top and painted in crimson lake and ivory. During the First World War, they became varnished mahogany, and before the Second World War, they appeared in their final livery of blue and cream. The line was single-track throughout, except for crossing points or loops where downhill trams could pass out ascending cars. This is Island View Loop with Sculwhurra or Howth National School in the background. When entering a loop, in either direction the cars kept to the left-hand side. The passing loops were as follows. The tram now approached the most exposed section of the line and was lashed with spray and driving rain in southerly gales until the shelter of Strand Road Loop was reached. The climb now began in earnest, and panoramic views over Dublin Bay increased in magnificence as the ascent continued. Having passed Stillamaris Convent, the tram now arrives at the summit, and then continued on a downhill journey until the shelter of Howth Station was reached, where she will then commence her return journey. Tragically, this famous little tramway ceased operations on May the 31st, 1959, but several of the old tram cars still survive. Number 4 is preserved in beautiful condition in the Belfast Transport Museum. The air brakes feeder pipes. The black control box. The ratchet-type handbrake with brass swan neck brake handle. The bullseye paraffin lamp with movable shades to show green, white or red, and the green meant car to follow. The air brake's pressure gauge. The tumble home rocker panel with inward sweep. The trellis type platform folding gate. The bulkhead drop window with 3 brass protection rails. The saloon was richly ornate with varnished timber. There was a monitor roof, which is a form of clear-story lighting with amber glass pivoted ventilators. The upper deck had reversible garden seats with timber laths and swivel backrests so that passengers could face the direction of travel. The upper deck was surrounded with timber and steel decency boarding. And high wire caging unique to the hill trams. Everything restored to perfect condition and everything exactly as it was. A blue and cream railcar arrives at Sutton and Baldoyle railway station, crowded with passengers wishing to travel on the trams. With an old carriage in the background and one of the blue and cream cars standing outside the depot in 1958, and inside a rare glimpse of works car number 11. Numbers 5 and 8 are off their bogies and partially scrapped. Number 7 sets off from the sheds on her journey around the hill. An enthusiastic crowd are anxiously waiting as number 6 leaves the depot, her headlamp blazing and her gong sounding. At Sutton, some rather distinguished passengers board the tram on their way to Stella Maris Convent. When passing Sutton Crossroads, the gong was sounded continuously. The majestic Shield Martin Hill rises in the background as the tram approaches Strand Road Loop. Santa Sabina Convent can be seen between the trees. The tramcar kept to the right-hand side when ascending Carrybrack Road. Number 1 halts at Howth, the main loop, and this is where the students of the future Sutton National School would have left the tram. The stretch of track from Strand Road to St Fintan Cemetery was straight and gently graded, and the trams usually travelled at top notch along this section. With Tom Redmond at the controls, Colin Weaver is standing at the rear platform. The golden gorse is in full bloom and a boat can be seen out at sea as the tram passes by. The olive green of the pine trees, the paler green of the fields, the yellow gorse, the azure seas, the purple heather, and the blue and green tramcar with large red lettering provided a stimulating panorama difficult to equal. This was one of the straightest sections of reserve line and a full throttle could be expected. In cases of fog, the conductor would walk ahead of the tram and lead it through this dangerous junction with Carrybrack Road. Passing under Fairy Hill Hospital, the tram once more entered its own private reserve. Number 5 stops at the Bailey Post Office as number 6 descends from the summit. Have you noticed, by the way, that every motor car we see is black? Number 10 is one of the Millens cars, passes out number 1 on the return to Sutton. The tram is now on a second reserve and the climb is steady until the Hill of Howth summit is reached at last. Arriving at the summit, number 7 sets down another tramload of passengers. The blue and cream cars were built by Brush Electrical of Loughborough and were delivered by British Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company in 1901. The bogies or trucks were Brill 22E with two 37.5 horsepower Westinghouse motors and the brush trams seated 67 passengers. motorman Jack Maypotter clears the section ahead on his return journey to Sutton. At last, motorman Dick McGlue is ready to continue his journey downhill to Howth Station. As number 7 crosses over Ballkill Road, you can see the trolley pole being pulled down. To this particular dog, the trams were most unpopular. This is Kruger's cutting, called after the Boer War hero in the news when the cutting was being formed. At Island View, Jack Maypotter tosses a packet of Goldflake cigarettes to Tommy Whelan. Passing over the steel viaduct, we can just see the lines of the old Howth tram number 31 on the road beneath. This service to Howth ceased in 1941. For many people, this will be their last journey on the hill of Howth trams, and deep in the hearts of most, there's a feeling of sadness as they know that the end of the line is near. The youngest motorman was Michael Fitzpatrick. With Tom Redmond at the controls, we climb steadily out of Howth Station and on our way to the summit. Notice the passengers are requested not to spit in or on the trams. Conductor Willie O'Brien was known to everyone as Showery because of his constant remarks about the weather. We are passing Uffington Wood, called after Lady Uffington, and Howth Castle, the home of the St. Lawrence family for over 1,000 years, to the right. In the background can be seen Grace O'Malley Estate under construction during the closing years of the tram. Tucked up well in her black cloak, the gatekeeper's wife, Mrs. Hopkins, passes by as number 4 reaches the summit on its return journey to Sutton. The summer crowds abound, waiting for the next downhill tram, with number 3 in the background. The return from the summit to Sutton, with Dublin Bay and the Wicklow Mountains in the distance, a gentle sea breeze and the fragrant smell of the heather, was an exhilarating experience, not easily to be forgotten. Gong sounds as the tram passes along Carrickbrack Road and enters the Bailey Reserve. The jagged rocks just off the coast were known as the Needles or the Candlesticks. Two of the blue cars meeting at the Bailey. Passing Carrickbrack Road and Wingate Road, the tram passed under some fine houses on the right. Barham Hill Loop projected well into the roadway and caused something of a bottleneck in heavy summer traffic. We are passing the entrance to Howth Golf Club on the right-hand side. We are overlooking the lands of the future Carrickbrack and Uffington estates. At last, Sutton Cross is reached. This building is of course now Super Quince. Christmas 1958. This is the early morning mass tram, and as you can see, the milkman is also at mass and is parked on the tram tracks. Every year, tramcar number 3 was beautifully decorated with tinsel and holly by Bob O'Connor and Billy Rankin. After dark, with Christmas tree aglow and fairy lights winking, the tram looked like something out of a fairy story. Every year, Bob and Willie decorated their tram, and it became affectionately known as the Christmas tram. The final day dawned at last, and crowds of Dubliners thronged the way to have a last glimpse and journey on this world-famous electric tramcar. With their high upper deck caging to protect passengers from overhanging branches, they were the highest open toppers ever built, and also were some of the oldest. We were told that in the name of progress they had to go, and after nearly 60 years of faithful service, the end came at last. The people of Howth and Dublin were greatly saddened, although the hill trams have long since departed. In the hearts of many, they will never be forgotten. Number 9, the last tram to run, is now restored and can be seen at the National Transport Museum at Howth Castle. Number 10, her sister car, also built by Millons of Loughborough, is also fully restored to running order and can be seen at the National Tramway Museum at Christ in Derbyshire. Number 4, seen earlier in this film, can be seen at the Ulster Folk and Transport Museum at Coultra in Northern Ireland. Number 2 was taken by the Tram Museum at Paris in California and brought to running order by Jim Fulton. The running parts of number 6 are now in operation under a Californian-type open car and is operating at the Heaton Park Museum in Manchester. There was talk about bringing the tram back, but the cost was too prohibitive. I was at boarding school when the line closed. I didn't know. I got on my bicycle and cycled out to Sutton Cross to see the trams and acquaint myself with an old friend. And this is what I found. I sat down on an old tram pole and wept bitterly. This was wrong. This could have been a wonderful tourist attraction. And there, in the distance, the replacement bus stood proudly. It was the end. number 9 in the National Transport Museum has its motors fully operational, but the small voluntary society with no financial support would not have the funds to consider rerunning this fine tram. But who knows? Maybe in the future circumstances will change, and once more the people of Dublin and Howth will hear the roar of tram motors and the clank of the gong and enjoy once more a ride on the old hill tram. Jim Kilroy, Director of Tram Restoration at the National Transport Museum. Thanks to everybody who provided material to make this film possible. Thank you.